Good to see you all. Hopefully the mic's working. Hopefully Garbage and others will tell me in the thread, but I'll carry on. It's Tuesday, 22nd of July, 2025, and to sum up tonight's show, imagine a bruiser doctor manhandling Turlo out of the TARDIS shouting, "Get out of my gaff!" Or a rough-looking doctor giving Adric a few head punches for getting lippy, or telling the Aussie bird to pipe down at the back, as she's giving him a real headache. The Doctor could arrive on Draconia with his Cockney rhyming slang and greetings. See how that goes down? A Del boy in the TARDIS. Yes, the mind boggles. It really does. But does it entice you in some sort of perverted way? No, we know the situation Doctor Who is in now, thanks to major missteps here and there. So would a mental working class Doctor Who be just what the Doctor ordered? Or would it send the precious, virtuous BBC executives running for cover as they see their DEI, their messaging ripped to shreds by some laddish, edgy dialogue from our doc? So we will take a look at the merits of what EastEnders and Breaking Bad's Danny Dyer says about the role of the Doctor. And if you haven't met him, there he is there. Okay, so welcome everybody to the Talking Sense, Making Sense, Common Sense Sphere. We are here to sort it. Plus, you have access to the Source Whisperer with tidbits from the inside of the media tent. Okay? And a bit of an advert here. I know there was news about the Emmy nomination for Outstanding Choreography for Doctor Who, not for script content or anything. We have delayed that talk as we have a new news parody show, very irreverent and very acerbic, known as the Slug Report. It's only 5 minutes long when we do a news item. Please tune in and support our anchorman Sheldon Slime as he takes on Doctor Who news. Yeah, you can see he takes no prisoners. He gets away with more than me. So there you go. Look out for him maybe tomorrow or maybe Thursday. But we do have a show tomorrow as well, with Problem being, oh, that's a tasty one. But look out for the Slug Report. It's all Doctor Who, but it's kind of saying the stuff that we can't say. Okay, so that's me tidying things up. We need a mental working class doctor. And to go mental, I've got my friend Christian Divan and Dragon coming on, and maybe John Yulden later. Obviously, people work, I know. So let's have a look. How good to see you, Christian.
Howdy, good to be here.
Would you like a mental doctor?
Well, I think they've effectively driven the audience mental with what they've been giving us the last 10 years. So
oh no,
that's your turnabout.
Please do that again. Christian's from Dallas in Texas. Go on. Can you do that again? That metal.
Yeah, we want that metal
audience. I love it. Americans trying to do it. Well, I can't do Cockney myself. Just before we actually get going, I mean, I've got plenty of headlines and that. You all know I was away for a couple of days. That's why I haven't been churning out content, because I've been glad ragging. There you go. Good old Sophie Aldred, met Ace, had a good chat with her. I've got material I can show you for the channel, because it was all for Neil Cole's Sci-Fi Museum in Allendale in Northumberland. If everybody's got a really sharp eye, you'll see with amongst the exhibits at Hexham, still open by the way, you'll see the Scarrison that he's restored at the bottom of that picture. There's the Scarrison. And I'm hoping he can bring it onto our show when I have Neil Cole on the show soon. And there you go. Doctor Who invaded Northumberland in good old Doctor Who style. I mean, and then we had people who've created the monsters who are brilliant with the latex and the silicone and the clay. Fantastic stuff. So that's where I've been, everybody. Sorry for not producing, but we are back now and we mean business. And so, of course, we'll get on with our show, shall we? Now, headlines-wise, Christian, this is how we're going to do it, folks. You know I like to kind of structure it for you so that you can get your tea, come back, and all the rest of it. Danny Dyer's ideas for playing the Doctor. That's our starting headline. Then we'll look at what some producers and actors have said about how the Doctor should be played. And then by looking into the future of how the Doctor should be played, we'll look at Hartnell, Pertwee, Troughton, you name your doctor. Okay, so that's our intention tonight. So hopefully it entices you to come along board with us. So what I was going to say, Christian, though, is if we're deciding what will, whether we need a metal working class doctor or whether we need a posh pompous doctor, as RTD always says, um, we need to visualize the doctor, whoever he or she is, in typical Doctor Who settings, like an unearthly child.
Absolutely. It has to fit with the stories that are being crafted, with whatever world building goes on. And some interpretations work well, others don't. For example, just by contrast, if you look at Gatwa's various interpretations, they didn't lend themselves well because there wasn't a consistent profile. And virtually every profile that was generated did not have gravitas to help carry the story, whatever the setting is in. All you have to do is contrast that with someone like Pertwee or Capaldi, and you get a distinct difference in terms of the credibility of that character. So it's important.
Now, Wayne Parsons is onto it. He said, I can't wait to hear if Sophie Aldred had any insight into pillars on the show's set. Oh, I didn't ask that question. I did. I did do a short video interview with her, and you will see it on this channel. And I do ask her about the source as well. Oh, I covered all angles, but I didn't ask her about pillars. Oh no, that is so bad of me because, as everybody knows, I love pillars. Oh
Hey,
yeah, I
you
mean,
gotta
lovely.
love pillars. You're a pillar of the community. Come on.
Oh, well, yeah, there's ways of doing this. No pillow talk, of course, at all. But so yes, try and imagine whoever is your favorite doctor and see whether we can have a working class metal doctor, in the trailers for coming seasons. Look at that one for Doctor and the Monsters in July. I think it was 1982. Look at that. You think, yeah, that he fits the bill. The gunfighters, of course. Can you see your doctor there? And of course, on Unearthly Child. And of course, let's do another one. Let's go bigger there. I think this is the Daleks master plan, just done with colour. Look at that. Can you imagine your doctor, a working class doctor, in this scenario? And the final one, look at that. Mechanus. I mean, this is what we have to do. It's not whether it's working class, pompous, posh, or whatever. It's just, does the doctor fit the mold for our doctor?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will get off and running. And Danny Dyer is the first cab on the rank. If people don't know who he is, he's been in various things: Breaking Bad, EastEnders, tends to play a kind of Del Boy, Wide Boy, Barra Boy type thing with a bit of violence. As Garbage really does not want somebody like Danny Dyer to play Doctor Who out. That's very clear from what I've read from Garbage. And because some people say, well, he plays the same role. It's nothing different. But you could say that's Shooty as well. Some people have a career doing that, don't they? They just play themselves, really.
Yeah.
So yes, what did Danny Dyer have to say about Doctor Who? And by the way, the picture on the right is from Grok, and actually Christian did that because you were wanting to depict a blue collar working class doctor of the future.
There you go.
But you seem to think he was a bit Troughton-esque.
Yeah, you got the kind of baggy clothes, a little bit unkempt, as opposed to say Pertwee, who followed, who was very posh with the felt jackets and the ruffled shirts. So there was a distinct difference, and that was the closest approximation that I've seen in all of the iterations of your quote close to working class style doctor.
Well,
And
we'll touch in with our thread as we go through this, because obviously we're in this little interim, this pause with Doctor Who. We all know we are. And we know even on the good news front, if the Doctor Who will come back in say 2 or 3 years, it will be 2, 3 or 4 years, no sooner. So the point is, we've got a nice pause to discuss the types of Doctor out there, and of course the media are asking any actor with a pulse, would you play the Doctor? So we're going to get plenty of stuff like this, I dare say. Anyway,
Mhm.
Danny Dyer
Yeah.
gives his tuppenny worth, and he says, Danny Dyer, I mean, he doesn't eye the Doctor Who job. He was asked a question, let's be frank. As he reveals the plan for a working class Time Lord, the BAFTA winning actor says he'd like to follow in the footsteps of actors lucky enough to be cast in the iconic role. So let's see a little bit more. The actor says that while he's never been asked to try out for the TARDIS role, he certainly wouldn't rule it out. Oh, it's such an iconic thing to do. It's almost not on the same level like James Bond. It's a character that's loved by so many. Yeah, it's just that nobody's watching it. Again, it gives you an opportunity with Doctor Who because of the nature of the work to bring something left of field, something a bit mental, a bit stylized, which I love. I love the idea of it. So, Thread, so Christian, what's your version of a mental left of field Doctor, and is it what we need?
Well, for me, I look at it more a case of eccentricity. Still, that's a cardinal element. Doesn't matter what version of the Doctor you have, they're going to be eccentric. And it's that version of the British eccentric. The question is, how grounded is the character? Is the language a little bit less flowery and more direct? So if you've got someone who befits a blue collar version, a worker class version, who's very hands on, that lends itself in terms of interpretation as to someone who's going to get their hands into the dirt to get the stuff done. And the language is going to be very direct with the companions or any other characters in the show. And there may be a loss of patience with the people around them that's a bit more overt. So I wouldn't want to picture the mental quality of the Doctor as being so
I,
so
th- I
stable.
tell you what we should do tonight is we have our shonky chats available with the Who Pets, but we should ask everybody if they want to bid a little bit of money to hear our Dallas Texans saying, metal,
Oh,
metal.
that's painful. That'll drive me mental.
Yeah, I thought that's so funny because to do these guttural references, it's so funny. What are you doing? What, you've got to talk like that. Don't you? Got a lot of bottle. Got a lot of bottle. I remember doing it. Yeah. Anyway, so, what are people thinking about this one? Because I think, do you know what, Christian? I've surprised
Mhm.
myself. Yes, we will talk about. Well, haven't we already had a working class Doctor Who with Chris Eccleston? I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
and almost a touch of McGann when he came back in Night of the Doctor. There's an essence where he looks grittier than he did in the movie. So whether he, yeah, but so we'll discuss that later, everybody. Whether we've actually had a working class Doctor, that doesn't mean you can't have another one.
Yeah.
But actually, does it fit the program, Christine? Is what I'm more bothered about. Let's face it, the Doctor's supposed to be an alien, an outsider, aloof. And aloof can mean lots of different things, but certainly an outsider and an anachronistic from society. I
Yeah.
really don't want somebody imbued in all the rubbish to do with our ills of today. I mean, God, if you had a working class doctor now, don't tell Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, he'd have him down with far right. I mean, he'd have him banned off all channels.
Oh God, yes. Now, I think that part of the reason that out of the 16 recognized incarnations that we've only seen really something close to working class a couple of times. It's partly because the character lends itself better to the more sophisticated iterations that we've seen. That's part of the issue. It doesn't lend itself as well to your working class model. It just doesn't.
Yeah, look, I'd like to think I come from working class stock and all the rest of it, but that's not the point. Yeah, you can have a grittier accent. You could argue Jodie Whittaker thought she had a strong northern accent, but it didn't quite work with the role she was trying to
Yeah.
depict. I don't think, personally speaking. I think Chris Eccleston's Doctor, every planet has a north. I think that landed well.
Hmm.
But we only had him for a season.
Yeah.
And so we don't really know how a working class-esque Doctor would pan out. We haven't really had one. I resent the RTD nonsense in his new iteration when he talks about we can't have a pompous doctor. Well, I'm sorry, I never had him down as pompous. He was the person I followed. As Oti says, class shouldn't matter. The doctor is the doctor, and I think that's the safest place to be. He
Yes.
isn't a human being. Yes, his planet, the Gallifrey, has hierarchy. He's hardly rough there, is he? He's not. He's not a rough. He's an academic. But we don't want to get bogged down in all this. We really don't. I like going to, as I mentioned, Draconia, and you can see the hierarchy there. I don't want the Doctor being labelled. He's different. And
Mm.
isn't the magic formula that he is the outsider? As soon as he attaches, I think there's a problem. He just about got away with it in the early 70s because he always seemed a bit establishment. I was talking to so and so at the Gentleman's Club and all that stuff. You know what I mean? But he kind of got away with it nonetheless.
I think he got away with that at the time. But I look at it not just at the doctor himself and the setting he's a part of, but the nature of the companions with the doctor that help drive the nature of the relationship and how gritty the doctor is going to be versus how sophisticated. So you almost want a contrast. So the grittier the doctor, the more polished the companion needs to be, and vice versa, in order to feed that dynamic.
So we've got a fair few kind of interesting points here. So I'm going to try and keep up with them. Remember, Shonky Chat will get you noticed a bit more. I say that Farsight will say you missed me once, but I'll always remember now. You always remember your mistakes.
Mm,
Cosmic Toyman. I'd rather it wasn't Danny Dyer, but he would still be a huge improvement over Shooty Gatwa and Jodie Whittaker. I know I've changed what you're saying because I'd just like to keep it there.
you're a
Buffy,
gentleman.
yep. Woodhouse 22, Dyer has no chance of even being considered because he doesn't hit the right demographic. And
Yeah.
yes, because even if they decided, the BBC decide we need a working class doctor, as Danny Dyer is saying,
Hmm.
that doesn't mean they won't do some other tick boxes because Shooty ticked two boxes, didn't he?
Yeah.
Gay and black. So basically, we know the game sometimes these media executives do. If they can get a full bingo scorecard, they'll go for it.
Absolutely. And it doesn't do service to the character, unfortunately.
No, and this is the point. If we got bogged down with the working class idea, I think we're missing the point of what the doctor is, which is why I said alien, aloof, and outsider. They're the criteria I would go for first, and eccentric, rather than is he working class. He can have a gritty accent, give him a leather jacket if you want, but I don't think they're mandatory. Alfie, Jack, good to see you in Portugal. Rafe Spall would be an excellent doctor. Stephen O'Neill, Rafe Fiennes, or Rory Kinnear as the next doctor. We're in that time, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're in that time when we're all going to have hedge our bets. And you're only doing what the press are doing.
Yeah.
Callum Turner is too good looking. We need that eccentricity back, says Paul Richards. Stephen Bellow, Colin Baker's speech of his noble brow is always how I want my doctor, proud and pompous. If proud and pompous is just him being aloof from everybody else and being, I'll go with it every time, I have to say. So let's just kind of unpack a little bit more and move on to what else he said. So it's not on the same level as James Bond. Wash your mouth out, Danny Dyer. What is this? It's gone. This is the problem, Christian. That
Hmm.
in the last few versions, Doctor Who in the same sentence is compared to James Bond. So they've now said it's got iconic cultural British status. That's what they're saying, isn't it? Now you could all go, oh, let's pat ourselves on the back. We're up there with James Bond. But that's not good, Christian, as far as I can see, because as soon as Doctor Who is seen as a British cultural prize, I think that's when people want to ambush it and do stuff to it. I'd rather it was just hidden behind some weeds in the middle of a wood somewhere.
No, that's a very fair assessment. One of the problems that happened with all of these science fiction properties over the last 20 years is that geek chic took hold, and everyone said, "Ah, these are cash cows. They are iconic. Let's ambush them and use them to our effect." Well, James Bond has kind of been in that category for decades, but Doctor Who was really in a niche category by itself. As soon as they start to open it up, all of a sudden everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon and subvert it to their ends, which is not healthy for Doctor Who.
No, no, and I think that's my problem. When Doctor Who was smaller, when it was, low budget, we loved it. I don't think a lot of envious eyes were on it. It was seen as that little awkward embarrassment for the BBC. Now it's seen as some global streaming content. We've lost it. And that's
Mhm.
my concern, that they want to fulfill lots of formula and quarters and everything for Doctor Who. They didn't give a
Yeah.
damn in the past. They really didn't give a damn. Now, Cosmic Toy Man, you've got there. Me and Christian and Cliff have been talking about this. I did a show on my Thursday think tank, and we talked about how you're going to save the show, salvage the show, and we've got some plans. Well, there's a lot of planning being going on with Christian and Cliff and other writers, and we will present a pitch on here as a live pitch to the BBC of what we think we want from Doctor Who. So McGann was one of my thoughts back for a 6 or 8 episode traditional series, bring the character back and show back to where it should be. Yeah, re-establish it. I agree with that. But look out for that. It's not going to happen next week or anything, but it's soon. It's imminent. We've just got to get our ducks in a row and talk to each other. And I've been out and about. Nicola, I know it's controversial. Oh, well, why not say it? But why a male doctor? Right, Jodie Whittaker was hampered by poor scripts. Well, I agree with that. And no mentoring. I agree with that. How about an older, eccentric woman like Helena Bonham Carter? Well, I'm not the showrunner, and I am not God, and I'm not in charge. I personally would prefer it had stuck to a male character, but that horse has bolted, Christian.
Yeah. Well, you've heard me discuss this on many occasions. I don't mind a female Time Lord. I just have issues that are science based for the illogic of having gender swapping characters. But that aside, the story has to be effectively constructed to make it credible, and you have to have an actor who fits the role. Now, it's interesting. I love Helena Bonham Carter, but you'll notice that that's a big name with a lot of credentials behind character performances. But in order to cast effectively, you're probably going to have to find someone who's less well known in order to
I, I think we
make an
need
effective
yeah,
lead.
we need an actor who will take a risk. I mean, a real risk. They'll go for it. If you really think of what Matt Smith did, he's a young, good looking lad, and he really went for it, didn't he? He
Mhm.
really distorted his physicality. He took risks. He studied it, he thought about it, and he went for it. Um, Tom Baker did it instinctively, but that's a kind of, I don't want somebody thinking they're beautiful and all the rest of it. Um, as I move on from the quotes here, I think this last bit. So the James Bond thing bothers me because RTD mentioned that, didn't he? He kind of said, "Oh, Shooty might be the future Bond," and you're going, "Can we just stop these comparisons? Let's just get our show sorted out and ignore everything else." But I do agree to a fair amount with Danny Dyer saying it needs to be something left of field, something a bit mental. I don't know what he means by a bit stylized, but I think him saying a bit mental might be what we might say eccentric, offbeat.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's what it is, and if there's a negative connotation attached to it, it might be a lack of patience for the people around him. But If you look at, say, Colin Baker's iteration, he was a bit impatient with the people around him. And it's rather like you've got someone who knows a lot, and it boggles the mind that what's obvious to them isn't obvious to the companions or to the other guests on the show, because they've seen so much, they know so much. It's obvious to me. How can it not be obvious to you? And there's a little bit of attitude that goes with that mindset.
Squinty Mint, the reason they will play safe is the money involved. That's the problem. It's got too big. It almost needs to die a little bit. And people think it's a kind of very, very unsatisfactory product. And then we like the phoenix, it rises again. Nobody sees it coming and then it rises again. There's an element where it needs to die. It's a bit like that battered TARDIS in Trenzalore. It needs to be kind of forgotten, and then we can bring it back as we know it should be brought back. The Farsight is not happy. Dear Lord, not another female doctor. It doesn't work. Gives me an excuse to say Farsight. He's been texting for a little while now, and he's been imagining this Danny Dyer working class doctor. Davros, shut your mouth. Half inching the hand of Omega on my watch. It's very hard to do. Companion. Doctor, you sound like a cockney. Lots of planets of Bowbells, love. Doctor, he ain't nothing but a Torag. Lightfoot. Who's a Torag? I tell you what, you could have a scream just with the accent and just with all that, but as regards, is he really working class, or is he doing a version of cosplay? So the mental thing, I think we've already had. It's called eccentricity. Anyway, as you can see, he was speaking ahead of Sky's Mr. Big Stuff returning. So he was just asked a question. Now, he does say a bit more, though. Okay, so if I show you this, well, he would be an incredibly working class Doctor Who. Yeah, maybe a bit alpha. What I do, really, and as a lot of people have said in the thread, he only plays himself. You've hired me for a reason. I don't think you'd want me to come in and play Doctor Who, really posh. He said maybe his down-to-earth, no-frills approach is what the series has been missing. I don't think we've even ever had a working-class Doctor, have we? Well, Jodie Whittaker, she brought a bit of that to it, he said, confessing that he doesn't know much about the complicated history of the 62-year-old sci-fi series. Some would argue neither did she. Christian?
Well, that just brings something to mind, confessing he doesn't know much about the history of the show. You've got to know the show in order to have an informed opinion. And so he's coming in from the outside. It's nice that he's making a suggestion, and maybe there's a point to it. You want variety, but
he's suggesting himself it's a pension.
Yeah. He needs to be more informed before making this kind of a leap.
Now that right, okay, we're getting to that point when I should kick back on and to really, really get into the reads of some discussion. So, Christian, I'm not going to let that be a freebie now.
Okay.
So why should that be the case, actually, Christian?
You want to make sure that a person who takes the role knows the history of the role and has a sense of the ways in which the character has been performed in the past, how that character's interacted with other characters on the set, how the character potentially has evolved over the years. If you come in from the outside and you don't know enough about it, you're likely to take a detour that's not going to do service to the show. One of the handicaps that Jodie Whittaker had, admittedly, was that they did not recommend she familiarize herself with the show in order to create a blank slate. But the problem was, by the time they tried to generate a persona, she was giving rough approximations of Matt's and David's, preceding versions of the character, and it didn't do justice to her interpretation of the role. Had she been more informed, she could have done a better job with it.
I just wonder now, everybody, we fans, we say this is how it should be. They should sit there watching the videos every night before they do the role. And I fall into that a little bit. But I do wonder, after 62 years, whether if you had a very good executive producer and a good writing team And a good director, informed, as my source says, when they had Jodie Whittaker, he'd have got all the production team together and actually then said to directors and everybody, look, this is really important that we depict the first female doctor like this. Let's just make sure this is done, rather than it felt a bit too just open. And I think this is the issue, that basically you don't necessarily have to show the whole back catalogue to a brand new actor. What you could do is just say your version of eccentric, your version of aloof, your version of alien, your version of an outsider. And you can list a few other adjectives, everybody, if you want. But doesn't that give a good actor more free reign? I mean, none of those adjectives tell me cry. None of those adjectives are saying be a diva doctor, as Grok said to you. What did they call the shooty doctor?
Oh, they called him the catwalk model. He was a catwalk model. So what was it? See if I could find it in here. I that was so funny. Called him. Here it is. The runway model. There you go. High fashion flair. A runway model.
Yeah, you don't want that, do you? You don't want a doctor who fancies himself. I was just watching for research for my slug report, everybody. Yes, the slug report that should be on tomorrow or Thursday. For those who are just beaming in, that's a new parody show that really takes the mick. Now, on that, I've got clips, of course, and I had to watch Devil's Cord, of course, because, of course, the choreography. And I'm sorry, but there's even a moment where the maestro says, "You're hot. You're this, you're that," and I'm thinking, stop doing this. You know, the doctor should be nothing to do with looks and superficiality. So he says a down to earth, no frills doctor, a working class doctor. I think when we've talked about this, a working class doctor, I don't think that's mandatory at all or necessary. I think the vibe of being a bit more kind of gritty is a more modern version. But what I will say to everybody in the thread and to you, Christian, is whether it's working class or not, and mental or not, and all the rest of it that Danny Dyer is saying, the doctor needs to be accessible to a 2025 audience. What type of doctor is that? Because some people argue that the Shooty Gatwa doctor was supposed to be to win that modern audience coming from sex education, but it didn't work.
Well, it didn't work largely because it wasn't a universally embraced iteration of the character. We'd seen variations in previous decades. None of them were necessarily carbon copies of each other. Certainly, when Colin Baker stepped in, he wasn't going to mimic Peter Davison down to the wire. He brought something different to the table. The question is, if someone brings something different to the table, is it still consonant? Does it work with the character itself, and is it universal enough to be appreciated by the audience? I think everyone comes to the consensus that the doctor is eccentric, so whatever version is interpreted on camera needs to have that eccentricity, but how that eccentricity is expressed has to be something the audience is receptive to. Gatwa's iteration did not generate that receptivity.
No, and I have to say, like I said, I had to do all this editing for you lot. You know, for the slug report, I had to get some clips, and when I got some clips, say from the Devil's Cord, I couldn't believe it. I'd forgotten he cried in that as well because the maestro had trapped him in a drum. He had a tear down. This is unbelievable. Yeah, if gritty and working class means we're going to get a doctor who can actually hold his own a bit more, yeah, please do. Greg Smith, how someone can take on a role that has existed since 63 and not do basic research, or can I say, Greg, or not have heard of Doctor Who, or not know roughly how it should be played? I mean, come on. If you're a TV actor and you've not really seen Doctor Who, I just don't think you know what you're doing. Eccleston and Smith did it because they wanted to get it right. And I totally agree with you there. Now, Mad Mackham might be a rival up the road from Sunderland, but he's doing us a nice favour there. It's always lovely to get the shonky chats underway. Thank you for that. Very, very generous. Maybe all doctors are working class each and every time. I don't recall any of the stories delving into what working class people are on Gallifrey. I know what you mean, but I don't. I got, what do they call it? It's gone out my head. You know, the outsiders, the
Yeah.
Shebogans.
Sheboygans.
Um,
Sheboygans.
yeah, they seem to be the working class outsiders, if you get my gist, on Gallifrey.
Yeah.
Or maybe the guards, although they're the Chancery guards. I mean, they don't look as though they're just kind of, I'm sure they went to the Gallifrey Eton or something, So I know what I know what you're asking, Mad Mackham, but I didn't get the impression that when Fourth Doctor's in all his collared garb, um, he went to a good school, and I think he was. It was almost like he was. The whole vibe I get with Barusa and that is that he had a private education on Gallifrey, that kind of thing. University, it's all very like that. There's nothing that sniffs working class to me. But I will say thank you, Mad Mackham, and it gives us a chance to see a bit of Susan. Oh, this is nice. This is nice. Just remember, I'm your granddad. Yeah, Susan. Wait, what's going on here? Put your hand off that. What's it? Love all your work on Doctor Who, RTD. I've always got my hanky out. How many more seasons of Doctor Who have you written? You never know, I may have written as many as 5. Feels different this time. Oh, regenerating! You unearthly child. There you go. So that's all your fault, Mad Mackham, but thank you very much. Third, I was going to call Cliff Maxwell the third Doctor. Sorry, Cliff. The third Doctor was all about. Oh well, hey, you've got the garb now. The third Doctor was all about looks and superficiality. He was a dashing and flamboyant swashbuckler. We have to be careful when using euphemisms like working class. The fourth Doctor wasn't. Bohemian. He was a bit like a student setup, wasn't he? A bit like that. I agree with what you're saying, Cliff. I mean, I think when RTD says the doctors were too pompous, what he means is too clever by half. So how does that work that you turn him into Super Jesus who can do and yeah, well done. Great logic there, RTD. That didn't work. And I think you've slightly got it wrong as well, RTD. So thanks for that, Cliff. Squinty Mint, as soon as you start making the Doctor specific, you lose an audience. Spot on. The character is an archetype, not rooted in class or sexuality. Squinty Mint, will you please tell somebody at the BBC that? Christian, he's spot on, isn't he?
He's nailed it. He's nailed it. That's one of the mistakes, though, that we've seen in the last 10 years. They seem focused on checking boxes, ticking boxes. We want this category. We want that category. That's not the way the Doctor has been designed prior to the last decade. But they've certainly morphed it into that.
So we've got, we've only had one working class Doctor that Jodie Whittaker says, a man who hasn't done his research. Well, this is, I mean, if you've not seen Americans, Australians, if you haven't seen Danny Dyer in action, this is him in EastEnders. He's a lovable rogue, apparently. 1 minute he can be comfortable with a baseball bat, the next minute he'll be crying his eyes out and wearing his wife's dressing gown in the morning, because some women seem to like a kind of pink dressing gown on a rough looking man. They think it's sexy. You can see him in his underwear. Oh God, oh my God, I think he's got the job already, Christian.
He's anticipating it. He's anticipating it.
Yeah, I think you've got the look of the 16th Doctor on the left, with some kind of, glittery kind of hat and some black boxers, because I think RTD would have that snapped up straight away. Anyway, I'll calm everybody down with a bit of Troughton there. You'll get some lovely photographs in between. So he carries on. I know. Oh, here we go. This is an actor, by the way. I know it's hard work. And some of the dialogue he's got big monologues talking about shit you don't understand. Sci-fi.
Well, he's certainly vying for that kind of gritty, grounded, salt of the earth, working class persona, isn't he?
But this is the thing. Does every actor understand every line of Shakespeare? I think not. I know they will try and really explore it, but I don't think every bit it lands. So if I just said that for a second, yes, it might sound like sci-fi gobbledygook to those who are not into sci-fi. But if you really sit down, as I used to in the 70s with my little target book and analyze the language, because I was trying to understand what the doctor was saying, if you break it down, prefix, suffix, core part of the word, and you get your dictionary out, you start to understand the meaning of genocide and the big stuff and insubordination. So yeah, I think a good actor, you just have to sit down and go, right, okay then, this is obviously sci-fantasy, but I need to make this look real and I need to believe this because I am a clever doctor. So I need to actually not dismiss it as S-H-I-T. I need to actually get into it. I mean it. And I think he's got them. I think he's coming about it backside first.
He is. He's coming at it from a tangent that doesn't necessarily work well. We know that science fiction is replete with examples of techno jargon that actors have to work to get out, but that doesn't stop them from articulating it in a way that makes sense so it feels credible. And I would surmise that many of the actors are in their minds kind of placing meaning to each term so that it comes together. We're reversing the polarity. Okay, let's reverse the polarity and see how that affects things. Reverse the polarity of what? Well, in the mind of the actor, they probably grasp it, and that communicates itself to the watchers, the viewers.
And isn't this the whole point of being an actor? An actor rehearses and delivers lines to show their stress, to show their cleverness, to show their intellect. They have to work out how to depict that. He's making it sound like it's just a practicality that, oh, you've got a blonde speech. Now, Jodie Whittaker recently has talked about some of the gobbledygook, and she struggled slightly in Unleashed, didn't she, when she was trying to do the scene with Shooty and she got a line and she didn't. Okay, I get it. But I think in essence, we've got people who are not into sci-fi. We've got another issue going on here. People who don't read sci-fi, who aren't interested in sci-fi, and they dismiss it as either gobbledygook or timey-wimey nonsense or S-H-I-T.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. It doesn't do service to sci-fi when people approach it with that mindset, unfortunately, because it's part of the world building. You're building the technology, the language that's supposed to go with it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Cliff is helping us out because I can't, my brain goes wonky sometimes. The Shobogans were voluntary splinters from Gallifreyan society, not working class. Always telling me off today. They opposed the class system of the Time Lords. Now they've been changed to just being called the Outsiders. Oh, Cliff's gunning for me.
There you go. Well, that's good detail. That is good detail.
It's good detail. I'm now in detention. Do I have to do a detention, Cliff? My detention club will be open and running again. Wayne Parsons, defining characteristic of working class is living hand to mouth, not being tied to heritage as higher classes. Would that work for an eternal Time Lord? There's some good questions here, and we're going to get to it. Don't you worry, because we'll talk about our doctors. So you've got 3 there. A lot of people like that moon-based picture. So there you go. There's Danny Dyer with his attitude as the character. Is this what we want from Doctor Who? I mean, I like a doctor when he's got attitude with whoever he's dealing with, because they tend to be the ones who up themselves. I love that moment that Chris Boucher wrote in Robots of Death when, they're taking on the 4th Doctor, and he just gets very clever with his language, and he gets very clever with every kind of thing he says, just to belittle them and just to bring them back a bit. He risks being killed, but he goes for it. So the reason why we're discussing this is because Danny Dyer was asked a question. The bookies are forever slashing Danny's odds when the runners and riders for who will next steer the TARDIS are being considered, according to the Daily Mirror. I'll be honest, no one's ever approached me about it. Go figure. But I see things now and again. What? My odds have been slashed to this, that, and the other. It's definitely something I would consider. Well, I think any actor would say on a potential job, yes to it, because that's the way you go. Um, Mad Mackham, you see, they're hitting on me being a teacher again. Garbage started it because I mentioned that every day's a learning day, Brendan. You know what? That if you were a teacher, they've got it in for me. Infamy, infamy. They've all got it in for me. I feel as I'm
You're
kind of
not
here.
going to escape the classroom, Brendan. You're not.
No, no. The classroom cannot be escaped. So there's Danny Dyer giving his version. But where I wanted to link this before we discuss the other doctors and what people have said about how the character should be played, people should know their stuff. Danny Dyer is famous for being a bit of a tough man character. And of course, I can't leave it alone because it was in the press this week in a kind of article in the Daily Mail. They're not happy with what Shooty Gatwa said. So playing Doctor Who's tough, Mr. Gatwa. Try being a nurse in a busy hospital, then you'll know the real meaning of exhaustion. And of course, I did that show last week. I'm getting old and tired. My knees have gone. And of course, it doesn't go down well. I mean, however you want to depict our Doctor, don't be a wimp, is what I say, Christian.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, that was the mistake that Gatwa made. As an actor himself, I get the impression that Ncuti Gatwa is disconnected from his viewers, from people that follow him. He doesn't really understand what people expect or what they need to see. And so he's going to make this kind of a verbal misstep. I'm 32 years old. My knee is going bad. I'm too tired to keep playing this role, but I'm going to go into ballet. He's not putting the ideas together in his head in an effective way that's credible and communicating it with the audience. And it's going to come back and bite him down the road if it hasn't already.
Well, I've won a fan. I only need another so many thousand. Captain Have Fun, the Doctor Who podcast. Brendan, I hated most of my teachers, but you remind me of one of the ones I still talk to 30 years later. I wish you were one of my teachers. I was Jekyll and Hyde, though. It was not all good, you know, Captain Have Fun. If you behaved and you did the work and we could have a laugh, I wanted all three. If you just wanted a laugh and no work, oh my god, I was mercurial. I was vicious. So yeah, I can't kid on that I was a beautiful person all the time. So anyway, so the shooty doctor may not have been grabbing the audiences nowadays. So of course, is Danny Dyer onto something? But this article continues, and this is the last bit. So don't worry, everyone. Before we move on, so as you can see here, a rueful chuckle on learning just how exhausting it was to be on BBC's flagship sci-fi drama, where they shoot a handful of episodes a year, as opposed to its flagship soap, where they shoot many dozens. But of course, most of those reading of the 32-year-old actors' trials at the coalface of TV entertainment will not be in steady employment in the showbiz industry. There will be veterans of real workplace fatigue and stress and burnout. Playing a fictional Time Lord is a tough gig, is it? Try playing a real-life teacher in an inner-city school or an NHS nurse frantically attending to patients on trolleys in hospital corridors because all the beds are full. And that's why I don't think, Christian, loads of people will be buying that costume on the right, because he wasn't, as a doctor, a good role model, I think, for being a human being, really, because he was just a little bit too flaky, a little bit too soft, and then the actor says it was a tough gig.
Absolutely. I mean, we've discussed ad nauseum the brilliance of the interpersonal connections with someone like Tom Baker as they personify the Doctor to their fans in the real world, and they made very sure to put on the persona of the Doctor and protect the image of the character and communicate that. Gatwa, unfortunately, didn't have the capacity. It was all about Gatwa promoting Gatwa as a model, as we saw in a number of the articles that came out concurrent with his casting and portrayal in the series. He was not doing the show any favors, and he wasn't doing his reputation any favors by comparison.
Oh, well, PTD, good to see you. New people, please subscribe, join us, repost, spread the word. Well, hopefully you just like the vibe. PTD, as long as the replacement does pee its pants, cry every 5 seconds, and says babe repeatedly, golden. You'll be happy. I know. Ironies everywhere. Um, just to cheer everybody up, we're hoping for Shonky Chats. A nice little bit of a reward to get our Texan to say something. He won't do it now. Metal.
Don't. Yeah,
Our
you want something metal.
yeah, our Who Pets are available to take your calls. It feels like Swap Shop. This.
Oh no!
Do you know what they they cause chaos in it's the job's easy. They just have to take the call, idiots. So last thing on Shooty before we move on, because obviously I'm trying to segue all this through. I saw this. Did everybody see this? You can go on YouTube. Please don't do it now because you're with us. Shooty Gatwa's best moments as the 15th Doctor, and it's on for 1 hour 40 minutes. I
He
mean,
had some best moments.
he
I
had
find it hard to believe.
I mean, how many? Come on, let's be honest. He did Church and Ruby Road, about 15 minutes in the giggle, and then he's got 2 full series of, 16 episodes, of which a few he's not in too much. So I don't know what the maths is, but 1 hour 40 minutes of Shooty's best moments.
Well, maybe that's it. It's the minutes when he was not on screen. Those were his best minutes. Maybe that's what people are watching.
Yeah, and when somebody said earlier about, well, come on, we could maybe have a female doctor. Well, maybe Millie Gibson was giving it a blooming good go before he was there. But yeah, everybody, come on in the thread, come on, play ball. How many people have tuned in to see the best moments of our 15th Doctor on YouTube? Oh, it must have been a very difficult editing package. No Devil's Cord, no Space Babies, surely not. None of the Church on Ruby Road. None of him standing on Boom in Boom for 40. I mean, what the hell? Redford here says more likely 1 minute 40 seconds, actually. Yeah.
Quite possibly.
Garbage hour moderators in shock. What? I think they only meant his only moments. So yes, I think everybody is in shock. I detect people haven't tuned in.
Yeah.
So of course, let's move on. Of course, or do you want to see BB's Doctor? Never mind working class Doctor. And thanks to Thinking for this, the visualization. Can we just get Doctor Who sorted out and never mind the spin-off of the Sea Devils and never mind anything else? Can you please sit down, you media executives, and get all your ducks in a row and really seriously discuss the future of Doctor Who and the characterization of Doctor Who? Stop thinking, oh, we'll grab Shooty from Sex Education and we'll buy an audience. You don't do that. Stop trying to do the lazy version of TV. Start sitting down and doing the hard yards of arguing with each other, debating with each other, hopefully like we can do on here, and actually get an idea, like me, you and Cliff have, of how we can go forward with a future Doctor Who series. And all 3 of us have to agree before we make the pitch. That's what we need. None of all this guff.
That's right. That's right. We've got to be focused on what it needs to be in order to bring it back properly.
Oh, well, I've made Jess feel guilty. And never feel guilty, Jess. It's lovely that you join us. Oh, she feels guilty for Brendan. Tea and crumpets, who pets? What? What, them? Jess, you've got this hierarchy all wrong, Jess. No. There's going to be nothing for them. It's more like, this is what's going to happen to them, Jess. Thanks, Jess. Nonetheless, it's lovely to feel your support. Thank you very much. Garbage, I would watch his worst bits, That sounds a bit dodgy, that. I won't watch Garbage. I wouldn't watch any of his bits. What are you talking about? Garbage is on the turn. Peter Venkman, there are best moments. Yeah, it everything that went on the cutting room floor, everything that they've found them, they've stitched them together, and it's really good. Um, Jess, future Doctor Who had to have a complete rehash, removing all who trashed it for a new writing and creative team.
Media,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, but we get it, Jess. We need fresh blood. That's what we need.
Yeah.
So let's get on to the next part of the debate. So, what do we want from the Doctor? And sometimes people who've played the Doctor or people who've been TV producers of Doctor Who have an idea, and we can all agree or not whether Danny Dyer's working class mental Doctor is the one we want or not. So, let's have a look at a few. Peter Capaldi! Oh, wouldn't you have him now? I think when he got the job, we all wanted him to play like the thick of it. I did. I
Yeah.
really did. I thought that would have been fab. Look how cool he looks. Now I know I've just said the Doctor shouldn't be superficially great and cool and that, and I will stick to that. But he was a blooming good Doctor, and he's a blooming good actor. And my God, we were lucky to have him once, but I wish we could get him back. But Christian, had something to say about Doctor Who. He's a man who's trying to do the right thing, who's trying to be good, but he's also capable of great anger and darkness. Notice class isn't mentioned at all.
No class, nothing agenda driven. It's something that's very intense and integral to a very powerful interpretation of the character. And witness his presentation, his monologue in the Zygon inversion. You're going to
Yeah.
have to sit down and talk. I just love that line from him. He had gravitas like I have not seen in ages.
Captain Have Fun 15 had one good moment though when we first see him running on the rooftop and jumping over things while acting like he was standing still, totally ignoring him running. Um, I was willing him on. I watched Sex Education and I thought, okay, yeah, I can see why you're doing it. I just thought I blame the writer and I blame the producer, actually, first and foremost, as we always should. Greg Smith, I want an eccentric hero who's willing to sacrifice himself for his companions in the universe. What, you mean not punch walls and cry? And even the Jodie Whittaker Doctor, she allowed other people to get in the way. I mean, like I said, when I mentioned Dark in Space, the Doctor had to be punched and made unconscious to then get out the way. He wasn't going to move. Bevan Michael, Tennant can keep popping up, but his story's finished. I see what you're doing there. Yeah, we might mention Tennant. It's up to where we go with the chat, but yeah. Alfie Jack, Capaldi was severely wounded by bad writing and characterization and the pain in the ass that was Clara. I feel your pain. I loved it when the Raven attacked. I thought, at last. So yeah, it's not about class. He's a man trying to do the right thing, but who's also capable of great anger and darkness. Mercurial. That's what you want. Or shall we say the word unpredictable?
Unpredictable. Yeah.
That's what you want.
Work.
So yes, I think Peter Capaldi obviously knew the Doctor pretty well. He was a Doctor Who fan. And yes, that dives into Christian a bit of the anti-hero thing, that he's not necessarily this lovable character all the time. Sometimes he will be full of anger and darkness and unpredictability and enigma.
Well, he's not supposed to be a teddy bear. Here you've got an eccentric, admittedly now thousands of years old, who's seen volumes of the worst sentient people bring to the table and is compelled to constantly intervene in order to fix the problems that everyone else has created. And the consequences of failure are extreme. That has to weigh heavily on that kind of personality. This is not going to be someone who's just a warm fuzzy.
But we did have what looked like a working class Doctor in the ninth. Chris Eccleston, and here he is recently at one of those classic Comic Cons or Super Cons there in Florida. I'm not quite sure about the stools, but there you go. He's obviously back with Big Finish at the moment, and there he is in the role. So yes, it's funny how Danny Dyer seems to have. What did he not know? Chris Eccleston played the Doctor, but we've kind of mentioned whether class is important or not. But would you go for a kind of Doctor where he was kind of no nonsense? When he shouts, he shouts. He's serious. He spits saliva out at that Dalek. He's angry. You know, would you go for that type of Doctor again?
I would. I just loved Eccleston's iteration in the role. He should have been with the role longer and certainly carried it well. He had, as you said, and I'm going to keep stealing this word for him. He had grit, and it showed in his presentation. Does that qualify as working class or mental? I'm not sure that it does necessarily, but it does qualify as gritty, and it works.
Farsight will be happy with eccentric, dark, and moody. Yeah, too right. And we did have a what we thought was a dark Doctor to a degree when Sylvester McCoy was finishing, and that's why I really enjoyed this weekend meeting Sophie Aldred in Hexham, supporting Neil Cole and his classic sci-fi museum. Please support Neil Cole, everybody. You can subscribe to him, you can be a member. He produces great content, and he'll be on our channel soon. We've just got to arrange it, and you'll see lots of that Hexham exhibition with a lot of the material from Classic Who particularly. So that was Peter Capaldi talking about things, but I'm showing you this because Sidney Newman, let's go back to the beginning of time. Now, he did say more recently this one. At a later stage, Doctor Who would be metamorphosed into a woman. This requires some considerable planning, mainly because I want to avoid a flashy Hollywood Wonder Woman, because this kind of heroine has no flaws, and a character with no flaws is a bore. Right, there's your essay statement. Discuss.
Well, again, we talked about the problem that Jodie Whittaker had when she came in, and she was largely disconnected. Let's assume you had someone who had energy that actually generated a gravitas that unfortunately Jodie Whittaker was not able to do. They had to be written for well, and the transition to a first female Doctor, as far as the history of the series was at that point in time, showed a major shift, and it should have been even a surprise to the character, because all the previous iterations there had not been that gender swap. So you had to write it well, make it credible, and you had to have an actress capable of carrying the role with the weight necessary to sell it, and they didn't pull that off.
Where does everybody in the thread stand here? I feel as though this is a burgeoning community, and I start to understand what most of our community think. I'm not a representative of the community. It's just I get the vibe after all these many shows. What's everybody thinking when you read this? We don't agree with everything made by everybody in Doctor Who. I know he was at the origins of Doctor Who, and thank God for that. But that doesn't mean we have to agree with everything he says. Critical thinking is important. Now, he's got at some point Doctor Who should be metamorphosed into a woman, but then he also makes the point about a character with no flaws is a bore. And I have to say, that's why I think a lot of us talk about Super Jesus. That's where it went wrong, and he was a male. And this is the problem. He's become a Marvel hero, hasn't he?
He really has, and it's unfortunate that they've taken the character in that direction. One of the things that we've talked about is the Doctor who doesn't have complete control of the TARDIS. The TARDIS is not working entirely. He's struggling to figure out things as he resolves various conflicts, because the character is flawed. But they morphed away from that into Super Jesus, which was the go-to, I know, certainly in the Tennant run, and that got old very fast. I'm not sure they understand today how to get back to what the Doctor was, not with the teams that they have writing around the BBC or at Bad Wolf.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, for example, Squinty Mint says Sydney Newman 2, like RTD2, would have killed the classic series. Or was Sydney Newman, to be fair, and we have to try and be fair in what's going on. He's a TV producer. It's in his blood. Is he saying when the program's been going so long, you've already had so many versions of a Doctor, and maybe what you do need to do then is jump the shark a little bit and do something different. Keep trying to do something different, and if you haven't changed its gender, maybe that's the next thing. I'm just thinking, why would Sydney Newman say that? Actually, I think the bigger point though is you can't have a character with no flaws. There's no drama, there's no jeopardy, there's no interest. I mean, at the moment, whether we've got this bi-generation nonsense of multiple versions of what goes on at the moment under RTD2, Christian, it seems that the Doctor now can just grow an arm back. He keeps a hand in a pickle jar and suddenly he can be a doctor. We have the Super Jesus phenomenon that we've referred to. We have this whole idea that this regeneration energy can be blown through the air to each other, sucked through the TARDIS vortex. All of a sudden, it's become this magical, naff, Harry Potter-esque nonsense and witchcraft.
Brendan, it has. It has. What's something that we've talked about previously? You have to have stakes. What does the regeneration pixie dust do? It takes away stakes. Oh gosh, someone stepped on a butterfly and turned into a lizard person. So he's going to breathe 6-month-old regenerative energy on the butterfly and change the timeline back to what it was previously. There are no stakes, and you lose gravitas in the story itself. It no longer is compelling because you know it's going to be some kind of a pixie dust solution. You might say that this is another variant, if you will, of the sonic screwdriver. And we've talked about that before.
Yeah, get rid of the Harry Potter wand of the sonic screwdriver for now, the way it's treated. I mean, gosh, in Star Beast, when it made a force field and barrier and no, this is the problem, and JNT was right. That's why it gets just ridiculous. Isn't it funny how JNT had one of those moments when he said, we need to get rid of the Sonic. It's just too easy for writers. We need writers to have to sweat it out and think, how does the Doctor get out of this? And that's what Sydney Newman's saying. We need a character who sometimes makes mistakes. Sometimes who just lands in the wrong place at the wrong time, where the hell's my companion now, with that sort of thing. Rather than, oh, I've been here before. Oh, I know this. Oh, and can land the TARDIS pitch perfect in Wild Blue Yonder to get the right Donna back and chuck the other one out. No. And I find it interesting because we've got such good fans in the thread. We don't all agree, but as Paul Richards says, Sydney wasn't keen on the Daleks, so he wasn't always right. Very true. Verity Lambert knew it better than him on that one. We can all have an instinct. We can all be right for one day, and we all make mistakes, and that's why we all get on with each other. Ego and all that nonsense is too much. I'm never right. I'm never wrong. I'm somewhere in the middle. Same with you, probably, Christian.
Oh yeah.
But this nonsense that I'm a Doctor Who fan, that doesn't mean I'm always right. No way.
But the nice thing is, being a fan and having familiarized yourself with the history of the show and the content of all the stories, you do have an understanding that a lot of people outside of this fandom possess. The BBC that we've complained about, and people there not understanding the show. It takes an investment of time and energy to really have a grasp of what it is.
Popcorn Power saying various things. The Sonic Screwdriver did too many things. It's now a cheat. And we've got to just say that. It's a cheat. Cliff Maxwell, RTD said to remove said to remove the Sonic and immediately put in psychic paper. I know. Go fathom. Squinty Mint. The character should have flaws, but the character stuff is not the show. Once it's always about his anguish, it stops me. Again, I agree with that. I don't want to know his hinterland. I don't want to know whether his mum dropped him on his head like Obelix. I don't want that. I want him to just work the TARDIS as best he can, land somewhere he doesn't know, be confused in episode 1, yes, episodic, and just blunder through the episode and then start to pull a plan together to defeat whoever it is.
Actually, that he doesn't know. One of the things that we've seen with the development of New Who is that the Doctor is becoming this computer repository of all the knowledge in the universe. Every place they go, he's already familiar with. Wouldn't it be nice to have a Doctor who's visiting a world and a culture that he has no familiarity with at all, and he's learning along with the rest of us?
Well, that's why you could have it a bit like Star Trek, the original series, or Voyager. You know, come on, where's the adventure? Where's the excitement? You cannot beat the moment when the TARDIS lands and nobody, including the Doctor, knows where they are. I'm sorry, but that is what we all like. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I'm guessing I might be on the money there. John Yulden, we were hoping he could come on, but he has been at work and he has been under the weather. So everybody, do you know one way we could all cheer John Yulden up? I'll just tell you very quietly. I'm going to be a bit Tom Baker-esque. Shh. Just go to his channel, Sci-Fi Chronicles 79, and give him a subscription. And I think suddenly he'll pick up. Bet you. John Yulden, suddenly he'll be ready to take on the world again. Anyway, good to see you, John Yulden, and let's see if we can get you above the 350 subscriptions. So please, everybody, do that as a lovely favour. Thank you. Russell Davies on Chris Eccleston. I think his comedy is funny. He plays it brilliantly. I think the darkness is off the scale with him. When the Doctor's angry, notice this is the second time anger's been mentioned, it's spectacular. I wanted the Doctor Who to move away from very straight, masculine and testosterone-y sci-fi. I've joined a few statements there together, but this is all RTD talking about Chris Eccleston's Doctor. And you go, oh, look. Number one, Chris Eccleston was good at lots of things as the Ninth Doctor. I didn't think gurning and trying to do comedy was one of them. This is when writers and producers get things wrong. You've got Chris Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor. Let him play it straight. John Pertwee, fascinatingly, did book that trend and went very straight, although he was a very comedic actor. But he got away with it so well. He was really good at playing it straight. But I think with Eccleston, make him play it straight. The comedy and playing with the cards in rows and all the rest of it. Not me at all. But as regard, and the anger, of course, we want the Doctor to sometimes do something you didn't expect. But this bottom bit, which is from his most recent interview with Jon Manchester, when he said, I wanted the Doctor to move away from very straight, masculine, testosterone-y sci-fi. Why?
I get the impression, based on that last line and thinking about the earlier lines, that he's looking upon anger issues, the loss of self-control, as the loss of stoic representation of strength. Basically, what RTD is saying, we need to break the Doctor down. And that will be engaging for the audience, which is something that I kind of disagree with.
Yeah. Cliff Maxwell, you're on the money tonight. To this day, the only flaw that the Doctor showed that works is just not knowing everything. Yeah, that's the adventure bit.
Exactly. Exactly.
So John Yulden might be able to join us, I think. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, he said 10 minutes, I think. So it'll be a few minutes he should be available.
He's obviously hit 350 subs already. Let's get him higher, everybody. He might then stay on. He might end up with squatters' rights on the channel. We all get an adrenaline rush. So basically, Sci-Fi Chronicles 79, everybody. Favor for a favor. It's just lovely to see people feeling happy about their day's work. So that's his channel, just while we're talking, everybody. And yeah, let's get there. So what does everybody think regarding what RTD? Right. I think it's important that we don't. RTD did get it right with the Ninth Doctor. And I
Yes.
think he got it right by choosing David Tennant. Very charismatic. And in those early days, I was really pleased with where Doctor Who was going. The angry Dark Doctor seems to be what everybody's agreeing on. Is that what everybody else wants in the thread, in the community? But as regards this bit at the bottom, I really don't know where we're supposed to be going with this nonsense. Straight, just like we said, working class or class is irrelevant, didn't we, Christian?
Yeah.
Sexuality is irrelevant.
It's not about class. It's not about sexuality. It's about the Doctor coming in and solving a crisis situation and getting out again. His personality is in his eccentricity. He can have powerful emotional responses to the horrible things that he's seeing and the consequences of some of the actions that he has to take. But that's a part of the narrative. Apparently, RTD thinks that it's supposed to be something else, like a comedy.
Exactement. So, everybody, while we're discussing this, obviously, I said let's cheer somebody up and make them feel better. So, the best way of doing that is this. Does that remind you?
Hurt.
I'm sorry, was that too close to home, John?
Yeah, it was almost like a little dip into my world, mate. It really was. I told you.
Sorry about that, John.
I told you I was worried about whether I turned my webcam off the last few days.
Well, there you go, everybody. You must have got him up to 350 because he suddenly appeared out of everything.
Oh well, I couldn't. After those nice comments, I couldn't turn it down, could I?
Well,
so here I am.
Here he is, and if he dives away, we know that he's gonna be under Call of Duty. Go on,
and 352 I've just seen. So thank you everybody that subscribed. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant,
Thank you.
Brilliant. So I told you, an adrenaline rush defeats being ill.
Yeah.
PTV, Whittaker was just a bit beige, just a bit. Doctor Who equivalent of a Coldplay album. Gatwa, well, the acting was so wooden you could have replaced him with Pinocchio. No one would have noticed. Harsh, PTD, harsh, but it's allowed. It's allowed. So I know you'll have been listening as you were traveling home, I think, John, won't you? So you've heard that I've come out with some genius material. No, we've just been talking as usual. So what do you reckon to this, the straight, the masculine, the testosterone, and blather from our friend RTD? You see, this is it now. He's rushed on. The adrenaline's ahead of his brain now, and now he's going, I don't know what to
see, this is where RTD throws me all the time. He wanted the Doctor to move away from very straight masculine testosterone sci-fi. But yet, if you look at the at least the second half of the Eccleston era, he was a very dark Doctor.
Yeah.
So you couldn't, I honestly think the guy, there's a clone of him that sometimes produces Doctor Who as opposed to him himself, because he doesn't have to talk a load of bollocks, doesn't he?
You see, he's out of control. He's live and unleashed. Right.
Sorry, it was the word that just fitted perfectly.
John's subscribers goes up, mine goes down. No, I'm only
yeah. Well, mine's after the 9 o'clock Watershed show.
Well, thank you very much, John. Yeah, thank you. What is this? What is it? Sabotage. So, Farsight, I think they humanized him and gender swap partly because they couldn't come up with anything innovative. That is my cynical suspicion, that a bit like what Sidney Newman was saying, if we run out of ideas of personalities, let's just gender swap and hope for the best.
Yeah.
That's my vibe here.
Yeah.
And of course, I think we've been fair. RTD tends to want to write about Canal Street nowadays. And so, of course, I don't think we were there a few weeks ago. Canal Street doesn't look very straight or masculine. Well, masculine's a moot point. Plenty of testosterone, I would have thought, but, but there you go. So there you go. So on RTD discussing the Eccleston Doctor, and I have to say, the more I see that photographs like this, the more I think, God, that was a long, long time ago.
When sanity ruled supreme.
I know. I miss it. I miss it. Mind you, lads, I was watching with Jamie the last couple of days, Nightmare on Eden. And do you know what? I've never had a real affection for that one. It's always at the fag end of the season. I know I almost like Horns and Nymon a bit better. But actually, I watched it. And do you know what? I think Nightmare on Eden is exactly what we could be doing with Doctor Who now. It's ambitious. The sci-fi effects try their best. But I have to say, it's a great story. And if you forget woke and everything, the message is brilliant about drugs and everything. I think that's exactly what Doctor Who should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I think we're at a point now where we don't have the writers, or let me correct that. We don't have the writers who are the talented writers who are capable of writing those sort of stories allowed to be involved with productions like this anymore. If we did, they would be able to do it, no problem whatsoever. I mean, I'm going to throw it out again. Babylon 5. I watched season 1. I was talking to Christian about this the other day.
Yeah,
I watched season 1 and I thought, I don't know what all the hype is about J. Michael Straczynski and about writing for Doctor Who. And because season 1 I found was a real slog. I'm now on season 4 of Babylon 5 and it is sensational stuff. And that guy can write clever stuff. There's a bit in season 2 where he talks about quickly there's effectively a civil war with Earth. And there's a fantastic speech that's made about the Constitution from Babylon 5. And I'm thinking, that's J. Michael Straczynski. He can write stuff like that. That's what Doctor Who needs. It needs someone with the intelligence to do
Is it? And is it possible that we can say, yes, he did well with, I still haven't watched it, but I take what you're saying. Babylon 5, well done. He really produced and wrote that well. But now we need new, fresher blood. His time has gone. RTD's time. You know,
I'm not sure about that. I still think with J. Michael Straczynski, I think he's still got, he's almost, for me, when I see him tweet and stuff, I still think he's almost got a point to prove. In the way he talks, I think he's hungry for it. Whereas with RTD coming back, I didn't ever think he was hungry for it. I just thought that he was focused on pushing his agenda politics. I think the thing with someone like J. Michael Straczynski or someone like him is the fact that they will bring younger writers in. They won't care whether you're left or right. They will just bring you in based on the caliber of your ability.
Well, I don't want him to be the new executive producer of Doctor Who because I can't say his name. I mean, RTD, JNT, I can cope with that. But
Brendan Noble, former English teacher.
I always feel as though I sound drunk when I say it. Michael J. Straczynski.
Yeah.
Gotta go with JMS. Make it easy on yourself.
Yeah. Or do all your shows drunk. You know, you choose.
Yeah. So, Chris Chatfield, I've put this up because it's a good point and it's plain fair, sense fair. We do like a kind of range of opinion and we all gain from having those different opinions. So Chris Chatfield, Jodie Whittaker explained why she wore those culottes, those trousers. She saw a woman in a picture with this androgynous look. She thought it right for the Doctor. That is logical. And I do understand that she wasn't trying to make it very feminine. She was trying to go for the androgyny angle, hence why I don't think it executed very well, but I like her logic and I applaud that. I do. It's just I think go on.
I was going to say, mate, I get that, but I think we were talking about a time when we were talking peak identity politics, and I think that just pushes, and they were pushing it. That was all part of their design about pushing, you know, the Doctor can be male or female or be whoever he wants to be, and that was all part of the thought process, I think, as well. Not from her, but I think she was certainly being pushed and directed in those kind of decisions as well. You know, is it a woman? Is it a man? We don't know. You'll have to find out, kind of thing.
Do you know what? I'm just thinking of what people are saying. I mean, people are saying, and you know, various things in the thread, and still talking about Danny Dyer to a degree because that was the start of our show. I wonder if Danny Dyer, as an example of a working class type doctor, or a bit of a kind of, you know, guttural, you know, mental doctor, would not be a good idea for another way. Toxic masculinity. You know that the press are obsessed with this toxic masculinity where you can't show aggression or anger or be violent, all the things that the Danny Dyer characters do. So maybe a working class doctor with Keir Starmer's dim view of them won't be the new doctor because, of course, it's too dangerous because of toxic masculinity.
Yeah. I'll give you an example at the moment of where that's happening, and this is my opinion. The amount of negativity that there's been towards the new Superman movie, okay, is a cultural icon, a male superhero that is beloved by many. You contrast that to the Fantastic Four movie that's just coming out. Everything, it's the best ever. It's the best, you know, it's wonderful. All of this, all of that. There's certainly almost like an effort to bring that one down as opposed to the other. And I think you're right. If you had someone like Danny Dyer in it, or that type of character as the Doctor, every week it'd be like, this Doctor's full of hate.
Wow.
You know, it's Conrad again.
That's what you know. You want a bit of fun, so we'll. I've got a few more quotations on how the Doctor should be depicted, but at first, as a nice punctuation mark. I used to be a teacher, you know. We'll do this.
Exterminate! Exterminate!
And I'm unapologetic because when I have the soundtrack to Doctor Who, you'll get a bit of it in the Slug Report tomorrow or Thursday, everybody. Remember, I'm on with Pob and Bean tomorrow, and we look at where did they get Doctor Who wrong? Now, that's an interesting one because we're all critical of RTD at the moment, I suppose. But actually, I don't mean a whole series, but maybe just where did they make a misstep? Where did they get Doctor Who wrong? Where did it look as though the people making it or acting it just got it wrong? And for example, I'll go controversial. I may say tomorrow night stuff about the late 1970s. I might just do that. So join us at 6 o'clock tomorrow, when that will be the discussion with Problem Being. So we've had a bit of Chris Eccleston, plenty more where that came from. But there's David Tennant. And David Tennant is a Doctor Who fan too, and he had an opinion. This extraordinary character who was everything at all times, it's continuously inspiring, really, to get to play this mercurial, anarchic, extraordinary creature who gets all the best lines and gets to be the cleverest person in the room. The last bit, I think he over-eggs, because this is when we fell into Space Jesus. And this is where I agree with Sidney Newman with he needs more flaws. I don't want him to be the cleverest. I just want him in a pickle and he has to think outwit him, the enemy. It's as simple as that.
But we didn't get that, did we? In the end, did we? In the 60th, well, Star Beast, he was being told off for pronouns, and then he was, you know, what is it? A male identifying Time Lord, you know, comment. So he wasn't the smartest person in the room. So he might have to adjust that.
Yeah, yes, he's not as good as a schoolgirl who's brilliantly well done solving all the shoplifting in Catford. I mean, outstanding. Maybe she had this instinct for where all the shoplifting was happening. I think we call it a shop. So I'm sorry, I'm really coming out with it tonight. So, anyways. This David Tennant, yeah? This David Tennant, oh, the disrespect sounds dodgy, doesn't it? Mercurial. I think Mercurial is what we were saying earlier, that unpredictable, you don't know where you are. Even Sarah sometimes had to kind of almost explain his behaviour. You know, when you need a companion to almost go, he's like this often. You know, come on. He's this unpredictable beast that sometimes blows hot and cold.
Yeah,
you want that kind of characteristic in the Doctor. The harder it is to predict, the more exciting the character can become. Uh, but the less perfect the character is, that is, they don't have the instant answer to everything, the more the stakes are going to be ratcheted up because they're going to be struggling to resolve whatever crisis they were in at the same time. So there's so much richness based on the way the Doctor is crafted. And I think they've gotten away from that.
So, sorry, I'll just mention this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Garbage. Use brains, not brawn, or any other person in the room as your get out clause, and certainly not a random person appearing with a magic door. Oh God, not Anita, no. But the other thing is, that's why City of Death worked. The fourth Doctor didn't punch the Jaggeroth. It was Duggan.
Yeah.
That's the yeah. Go on. Sorry, John.
No, it's a wonderful story, and I was just going to say, I think it also comes down to the caliber of actor that you cast, really, because in my head, I'm thinking of Matt Smith. Matt Smith did his research, and because he's such a good idea, he came up with his own unique twist on how to play the Doctor. And I want an actor like that again, that really thinks deeply into it and thinks, you know what, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to stick to my guns, but I might adapt as I go along and do that. You know, what they seem to be doing the last few years is they just seem to be going, well, Tennant's run was popular, so Jodie Whittaker we'll write Jodie Whittaker a bit like a Tennant type Doctor.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the same with Shooty as well to an extent, but we'll make him gay. And they think that's the template for making a success. And as much as I love Tom, there are other Doctors than Tom Baker. And they, you know, I remember when Doctor Who was coming back and they said, like, their reference was City of Death, as you just said about that wonderful story. It is superb. But there are more wonderful stories in Doctor Who, and there are many more wonderful actors who have played the Doctor in Doctor Who. So you don't just have to go with that Tom Baker template, even though he's the GOAT. You plenty more you can look into.
I think there's an element where they're falling into formula and default, and it's pure laziness. As I said, my lazy fan position was Nightmare on Eden was not my favourite Tom Baker or Doctor Who. I will now have to revise so much, because the other thing I'll say is, if we were doing a show about the best cliffhangers in Doctor Who, since you know me, I love my episodic approach. I love the end of episode 3 when Dudley Simpson's music reaches a climax and the Doctor looks as though he's going to evaporate between the two spaceships. And there's that slow motion effect. Oh, he hasn't made it. And then it closes to that. And then the screaming effect of the... Whoa, you know, the Doctor he's just disappeared into the vortex. Tune in next week. So it can be done. And I agree with the sentiment of what you're saying, John, which is, let's not fall into lazy defaults and lazy judgments and lazy conclusions of keep researching it, keep exploring some episodes that we think aren't good. I'll look at a Jodie Whittaker and I may revise my opinion. Let's keep going back. I obviously preferred the early Tom Baker years, but actually when I look at some of the other ones, I liked some touches of what he did.
Yeah, 100%.
It worked.
Yeah, so Squinty Mint seems to be talking about maybe how John is feeling. I don't know. Let's get this right. I don't know. I'm not his doctor. Too much. I am the doctor. No, too much verbal diarrhea and showboating. How dare you talk about my channel like that? I'm talking about the recent Doctors in case you thought I was being rude. Well, it's a nice joke, wasn't it? Stephen O'Neill, Matt Smith did his research by watching Tomb of the Cybermen and used elements of Troughton's Doctor for his... Look, if you're going to say there's a default or a formula, I think a lot of actors, Colin Baker, etc., have all said Troughton is your default because he was the first different Doctor.
Yeah.
He had to, to a degree. You can't all do a Troughton because that's no good either.
I mean, he was a classic example, wasn't he? He was the one where he was so intelligent, but he always played a lot of his stories as being the fool in the room because he didn't want people to realize how smart he was while he was figuring things out. Wonderful idea, you know?
Yeah, and especially when it was in Matt Smith. Matt Smith was a young Doctor. He will have looked like a young lad. And I think the script still didn't use that enough, where basically you wouldn't expect him to be smart or clever.
Yeah.
But of course he is. I think he did it with a physicality, very interesting character and face, which is exactly why Tom Baker got the role. You know, it's an interesting face and character. So we've got David Tennant here, and my last one on this section is Stephen Moffat. Kids have nightmares about monsters anyway. What Doctor Who adds is the hero who fights monsters without ever becoming one. Ooh. I don't think he liked what RTD did in Waters of Mars, maybe. The Doctor is the ultimate autocratic liberal who, despite his ideals, can't help but revert back to the sense of superiority he was raised with. I always wonder, you know, when they kind of get things half right, and sometimes I've always said that the showrunners since 2005 almost don't like the Doctor. There's a cynicism, there's a challenge to it. I don't agree with everything there.
No.
No, I don't agree with all of this either. Reverting back to the sense of superiority he was raised with. How do we know he was raised with superiority? It could have been anything under the sun that compelled him to ultimately abscond with the TARDIS and leave.
Well,
so superiority may not have anything to
Kristen,
do with it.
you're 100% correct. And to back that up, he even wrote into the story that he was raised in a barn, essentially. So he's just undercut what he's just said, or when he said this. So, again, this is the faff nonsense I really hate now. It's like, you remember when you had Doctor Who magazine growing up and stuff? I never used to really get a lot of these comments that, they almost talk like they're the smartest people on the planet. Look at us, we're so clever. And it's not, just look at some of the tripe you've peddled out over the last few years. You're not the smartest people around. There's people that are younger and brighter that if they were given the opportunity with Doctor Who, they would make it shine again. Move over, your time's over.
Maybe there's a little bit of projection going on here. Yeah, I don't know if that's some of what Moffat was feeling in his own soul.
Yeah,
and he's projecting it into his words about the Doctor.
Yeah, people are pushing back, and this is classic how I used to I teach in class, which is you have to go a bit bigger, and sometimes you overgeneralize slightly because obviously you're trying to get engagement. So yeah, always pull me back. Stephen Braddock, Troughton was the Columbo of Doctor Who, but then equally Peter Venkman says he still carried some of Hartnell with his Doctor. And yes, you're right. But that everybody seems to go to, that's the go-to, isn't it? Alfie Jack, these showrunners simply don't understand who the Doctor is anymore. They've all become hacks. They've all my lazy version is they've become bored with the Doctor, and they want to keep reinventing stories around them. Oh God, it just bored me.
It always reminds me, and I always go back to the football analogy. When I used to play a lot of football, every season, a pre-season, and every game, our coach always used to say to us, regardless of how we were doing, he would always say, "Are you hungry? Are you hungry for it?" And he'd say that to us to try and make sure that we were up for it. These people, they just don't seem hungry. When RTD came back, I didn't think he was hungry. In the final days of the Moffat era, I didn't think they were hungry for it. Chibnall wasn't hungry for it, I don't think. You need people to come in that are hungry and they're thinking, I really like this character. I really like the source material. I want to do something wonderful with it. That's the only way to save it.
Yeah. I agree. There is, I couldn't put my finger on it, but there's, why was RTD2 different to RTD1? Success.
Hungry.
Yeah, the hunger. And I think you're right. You need somebody who wants, that's why I'm against the Michael J. Straczynski coming back, because just somebody new, well, maybe he has to make a name. Philip Hinchcliffe wasn't a top famous producer. He made his name on the show. So I don't know. I'm hoping for that, but of course, what we cannot have is somebody tank the show. There's no time for that anymore now. So let's just enjoy when we started with Danny Dyer talking about let's have a mental working class Doctor if it was him. But we can only talk about what we want the Doctor to be if we make references to what we liked in the past. Nice invite there. Just before we do start, I did say that the Paul McGann Doctor, in how he seems to be depicted since the movie, could have been a kind of working class escort, gritty, a kind of real battle worn, gritty Doctor. What do you think?
That would have been a nice look. It carried the character well. And again, part of the problem is when they created the War Doctor that they did not grant that opportunity to McGann, who should have had that role, because he would have carried it off quite well.
I never agreed with that when Moffat said he couldn't picture the Eighth Doctor as being the War Doctor. I 100% can, and I did at the time, because all you got to do is write a good script and Paul McGann will knock it out of the park. This is a Doctor that is, he's pushed to the edge. He's got no other alternatives. He has to do it. McGann would do it brilliantly. When they did the Big Finish, McGann stories, I did like the element that they went with where the Time War had happened. He didn't want to actively, as the Eighth Doctor, get involved in the Time War. So he was trying to help around the outskirts of it. So he would help where he could, but didn't want to actively get involved in the war. Whereas then they did the War Doctor series with John Hurt, of course. They then went that route with it, and he was actively involved in it. But yeah, have we missed the boat with McGann, though? I mean, I'd love a mini-series with McGann.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I really would.
If that's the case, then me, Cliff, and Christian are up a certain thing without a paddle, because we are going to make a pitch, and I think Paul McGann's all over it like a rash, because we know how to make a pitch, because I used to be a teacher and I know how to do this. Now, just to kind of rattle through a few of them and just take your yay or nay, it's 2028-29. I'm being realistic here. Doctor Who's coming back. Can you have a William Hartnell First Doctor type character? Will it engage with the audience? Will it work? Is it worth doing? What do you reckon?
I think it can with the right companions. That's the catch. We talk about if you had let's say you had a gritty blue collar style working class doctor, then you're going to have a companion who's very urbane and sophisticated to play off of that, and vice versa. If you have a very sophisticated and intelligent, articulate doctor, then you're going to have a companion who's challenging that by being less polished. So you can have the representation of Hartnell as the elder statesman, so to speak, stepping into the role, but you've got to have the right characters around him in order to play off of that and make it work. Because in a broad sense, they've trained the audience to reject an older doctor based on how they've cast it and how they've written the character the last 20 years. You've got to craft a compelling doctor with an entourage that makes it work.
Can I just say, because obviously the thread sometimes goes way fast. Wayne Parsons, if you want to get in on the pitch, although everybody seems to be deferring to me, it's only because I do the show thing, but Cliff and Christine have been doing an awful lot of work. Christian Horton on Facebook, Divine and Dragon, and Cliff Maxwell on Facebook. I mean, I can link you with them as well if you write to me on Gmail. But of course, and more the merrier. I've got no issue with that at all. Farsight, I don't know why he said that. That Moffat, the Eighth Doctor, got involved in a lot of dark times for himself and Gallifrey in the novels. Well, there you go. Sometimes we seem to know better. I mean, I look at this shot from Marco Polo with a colorized William Hartnell, and he was younger than me there, by the way. And you think, actually, there is no issue with having a First Doctor like that. He was mercurial, he was unpredictable, he was the anti-hero. Sometimes he could be aloof, sometimes he could be whimsical, sometimes he could be very endearing. I mean, he's got the template.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I've been doing the reviews of the first Doctor run recently, and there's always this misconception that the First Doctor is this miserable, cranky individual. He can be cranky at times, but a lot of the time he's really mischievous by some of the things he does, and his close-up face shots are really well done by Hartnell, and it's an absolute joy to watch. So you could definitely have that again. I mean, I would love to see an older Doctor again. To be honest, that's something that I would really like to see, because just again, to get away from the whole, there's a romance and all of that cobblers. You get rid of that straight away with having a much older Doctor, and you go straight back to this is a Doctor who is focused on trying to solve things with his mind and his intelligence, not running 100 miles an hour.
So what about, because everybody, like I said, Colin Baker and everybody refers to the Troughton Doctor because he was the first change, etc., etc. And well done. He took a risk with his career and he really went for it, and he was lovely. I loved his voice, I loved his mannerisms and all the rest of it. Can we in the future go for another Troughton-esque Doctor, or does it fit the time? The point is, by 2028, 2029, never mind RTD talking about dark times and all the rest of it, would a Troughton Doctor work? Because in some ways, anyway, I'll ask you, Christine, first. What do you reckon?
I think a Troughton Doctor could work. There are many iterations could work. This one works for me. My personal tastes. He's one of my favorites. And I find him very accessible and compelling. He's very disarming. I think that's a key component. He's disarming of the people around him because they don't realize how brilliant he actually is, and he plays that to a T. I like the comparison, the Columbo of Doctor Who. You want someone with that unassuming characteristic. The big question is, as we look through the iteration of Doctors from the classic era, and we get all the way into the new era, we've already seen that a Doctor like Whittaker or a Doctor like Gatwa are not going to resonate. Ironically, they were picked specifically at this time because maybe this is what the people want, or this is what's going to sell.
But this has been the problem. It's like the representation thing. What younger people need is a younger Doctor. No, what was I doing when I was 6? No, this is just lazy writing, lazy thinking, and this nonsense nowadays about representation is always about representing you literally. No.
Well, think about this, Brendan. When you were 6, if you were watching Doctor Who, it wouldn't have mattered if the Doctor was Peter Davison or Hartnell. As far as you were concerned, they were both adults compared to you.
Yeah. Like your parents, or I used to say with John Pertwee, he was like a granddad. And then when Tom Baker arrives, he thought, oh my God, he's a lot younger, felt it. But obviously still a lot, The point is, we didn't seek representation, and I don't think we should be ever trying to do that, because as a lot of people in the thread have said, if you keep doing that, you're dividing the audience. If you pitch to a certain market, you lose everybody else. It's universal. It's an archetype. Let's stick at that. Look at this colorized moon base. I mean, honestly, wouldn't you just do something like
fantastic.
this?
Fantastic.
I mean, again, I would also say as well, and this might be in your show as well when you do it, but it needs to go back and it needs to be written specifically as a British science fiction show again. Not trying to make it global, not trying to say, this will make it really popular in the US. No, as we've talked about before, and Christian, you probably will back me up on this, people like Doctor Who because it was quintessentially British sci-fi, and that's what makes it special. Do that, and it'll come from there. That's what needs to happen again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. John. The key is the show is already universal. The Britishness is the flavor of the show, but the concept is still universal. I don't think they grasped that.
No.
So you lovely Troughton there, lovely colorized pictures. I mean, I will say, and I'll continue to say it, if they just colorized and didn't mess with them, I'd have it. But unfortunately, you seem to get one. And as you know, I was at Milton Keynes Utopia 2025, and Benjamin Cook actually did say it has to look like New Who. And so they've been given an editorial position, which I disagree with entirely.
It's quite interesting as well when they say that, though, because I do think, and I did predict this would probably happen, that they would become like rats in a bag, in a sack, and they all start trying to eat each other at some point. And I think this has just begun, and I think we're going to see more of this. It's like, well, it wasn't my fault, I was told to do this. They're all in it up to their neck. There might have been an editorial guideline from the all high and worthy one, but how you could sign off and actually say, okay, what they did to war games in color, and actually follow through of it, is tantamount to vandalism in my eyes. It was atrocious.
Yeah. Now, if
Agreed.
everybody's still with us, please, if you like what you're seeing, and we'll be on again tomorrow night. My slug report will be out and about. Please like and subscribe. It makes sense.
Oh, Flux, you washed him.
So I'm thanking you before the event. I'm not going to go through every doctor because, by God, there's so many. But I was just thinking before I move on this one that I love John Pertwee. Of course, he was my first doctor. But I don't know if you could do a kind of John Pertwee-esque doctor now, because he did feel pretty establishment. And never mind skin color and everything, the point is he is very patrician, and it's just the wrong thing that the TV producers want now. They don't want somebody who's like that. I think he ticks all the wrong boxes for the TV producers, I think.
Well, therein lies the problem, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not whether you think it's going to be a success on the show, on the TV anymore with the viewers. It's, does it tick the producers, boxes for their political views and their ideological views? And that's what I mean. You need someone to come in at some point that literally has the balls to say, look, if you want me to do this, I'm doing it my way. Otherwise, don't give me the job.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to happen. And
Exactly.
Are we going to get that, though? That's the question, isn't it?
Exactly. Now, as you see the daffodil there, which was loaned to the Hexham Museum and Great Hall, sorry, for the Neil Cole exhibition, you can see the daffodil on the top there. There's the Scarrison, there's the Vervoid, there's the Auton. It's all there. Hexham. It's still open, everybody. It's called the North of England, Northumberland. If
I
you
need
want
to get up there. From the south, I need to travel up at some point and see it, because it does look great.
It's too far. I don't think my windshield wipers will run if I try and drive across the Atlantic.
Because you will get two for the price of one, because what you'll get is you'll go to Hexham, then you'll go to Neil Cole's Museum of Classic Sci-Fi, which is nearby. That's what you do, two for the price of one. So that's the plan, and I'll be on soon to explain it all. Well, you can't do a fourth Doctor because there's nobody like Tom Baker that exists. He was so unique, and to be honest, he was the longest serving Doctor. Blah blah blah. I just this is the Doctor I think you can't touch, really.
I think that's a very fair assessment. I don't know how they ever recreate that. It's just, they might create something new and original, but I don't think they can recreate Tom Baker. Won't happen.
Yeah. And as Garbage has been very helpful, saying Brendan seems to be saying tomorrow's the Slug Report, which will be a video recording for 5 minutes or so, news parody of the Emmy nomination for choreography, but definitely at 6 o'clock live too. Oh my God, you might get a double bill. Me and Problem Being, and James, by the way. So yes, Tom Baker there. I'm going to flick through a few because obviously I'm going to ask you now, John. Which Doctor, you're now the showrunner in 2028, if you were then talking to the actor you've picked, and you're going to, it's like Matt Smith, you show them Tomb of the Cybermen. In other words, you're pushing them, edging them towards Tomb of the Troughton. Which Doctor would you want your new actor to kind of emulate slightly?
I wouldn't. All I would do is I would say to them, right, I want you to review classic stories, research what has come before you, and then I want you to come up with your interpretation of how you want to play that character. I would then say to them that I'm on point to be available as a reference tool and for a sounding board if you need advice as you go along, and then I would help them through that process. But I would trust the actor who I'm bringing in, who I feel confident that this is the person that can play the Doctor, to find their own version of that Doctor. and I wouldn't constrain them at all.
Well,
Spot
I'll
on.
come to you, Christian. Don't worry. Richard says Tom Baker's equivalent will be Matt Berry today. I'll have to look these people up. I'm not in on it.
Yeah.
Jamie, obviously, hubby downstairs. Sci-Fi Monsters exhibition. Seek, locate, restore. Hexham. That's what we're talking about. And hopefully Neil Cole, who'll be tinkering, not with the Scarrison, he's finished that, but he'll be tinkering with something in the museum tonight when he's listening to us. He'll feel happy that we've added subscriptions to hopefully John's channel, Sci-Fi Chronicles 79. Hopefully I've gained a few, the more the merrier. And of course, everybody's booking to go to the classic Sci-Fi Museum in Allendale, Northumberland, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody wins. Oh, that sounds like our good old Eccleston. And of course, Sophie Aldred was there. But yes, in essence, what we're saying here. So, Christian, what are your thoughts on which... If you were going to actually guide the new actor in the type of Doctor you want?
I'd like them to see each of the previous performances as a point of reference so they see how the different iterations have come across. But as John was saying, I'd want them to try and create their own version. Here's why. You did not hear in the 1970s and 1980s saying, okay, I want you to copy this predecessor and mimic it. No, you don't want to go that way. And interestingly enough, at least at the start, when they brought in the new Who era, they didn't want a complete redux of what was done previously. So the idea is not to recreate what was done before, because then you get a Jodie Whittaker, and that's not successful. So the idea is to make something totally original, but still eccentric, still it still fits within that persona. And people can say, yes, that's a different Doctor, but I can still see that's the Doctor.
Yeah, 100%.
Tasty little chat tonight. We started with Danny Dyer waffling slightly, but we've moved on from that. And of course, if I can edit it, it's got clips from Devil's Cord. Oh, that'll win viewers. But in his acerbic, critical way. You can see what he thinks here of Jinx Monsoon. So basically, join him for 5 minutes. It's a news parody on Doctor Who, and he will give his take. He gets away with much more than me. And it's the Slug Report. He slugs out on Doctor Who news. That's the plan. Gives you a bit of a laugh. And live tomorrow night at 6, like I said, with problem being on when they took a wrong turning with Doctor Who, and I did mention late 70s as just to give you an example. But join us for that. It'll be really, hopefully, good fun and all the rest of it. So, John, are you feeling any? Was that a pick me up?
That was wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, I feel like I can take on the world now. Thank you, mate.
Oh, I've just heard. Hold on. The puppets have just told me that your subs have gone down by 25 now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I'm at minus 170 now, so I owe YouTube subs now.
Yeah, so that worked. But anyway, there he is. You can get him on X, Gallifrey 11 and Sci-Fi Chronicles 79, and the lad has done a day's shift at work and commuting. We know what it's like down south, and and he's come flying on because he found a subscriber from behind the settee. Wouldn't be like behind the settee, and he came flying on. So please make sure you subscribe to him. Give me one as a deflection. Christian, we just have to thank because he's not going, searching for subs and all the rest of it and all that kind of tacky
it's back to the classroom next month.
Can you imagine it? So thanks, everybody. Hopefully that's kind of a bit of a distraction from waffling on about RTD all the time or Shooty all the time. Thanks, Paul Richards. Great chat panel. Same again tomorrow night, I dare say. And me and John have got ideas regarding what he's going to say on his, and we're going to... John... Just to remind them, I am going to mention the Cyberman chat we had, which is on your channel now. When we did talk about RTD for a little bit, and we did talk about the Cybermen from 66 onwards. Go on then, what's on your channel?
Okay, so that Cyberman video is doing very well at the moment, where we talked about the history of the Cybermen, how were the Cybermen well served in the new era of Doctor Who? What we would do if we were bringing them back. So that was a good fun video. I've got the Stargate SG1 live watch-alongs on Sunday nights in the UK at 8:30. We do a double bill each week, which is great fun. We're doing season 2 at the moment. There's some more recordings on the way that are going to be put up. There's a review of the movie Galaxy Quest that's coming very shortly as well. And the other thing I'll just mention is me and Brendan, currently we're working on a recording that will go out on my channel, which is about the Master.
Yeah,
So
we wanted to do a short one, didn't we?
yeah, which will be 8 hours.
So yeah, yes, the Master. So we've done Omega, we've done
Cybermen.
and then that one, and of course we are also talking about you coming on out this channel.
Yep.
The Amanda Stellar panel with Christian and Joe, but me and you talking about season 12.
Absolutely. So when we did on your channel, we did the wonderful talk about season 13 coming out, and we talked about our passions for all the stories in that season. We're doing exactly the same again for season 12, aren't we?
Yeah, and if everybody in the third, I mean, people seem to really like that engagement. So season 13 we discussed for obvious reasons, it's coming out soon in Blu-ray. But actually we said, do you know what? As Doctor Who fans, I don't want to do one-off stories because I go too detailed. You know what I'm like, teacher. But it'd be great if we did a season and we can just go on about the various bits. And that seemed to warm the cockles of everybody. So I said to John, can we do season 12? Because my cockles were well warmed for that season. So can we do that one? So that's it. But if you've got any suggestions for a season you want us to kind of have an overview of, as Doctor Who fans, please like, subscribe, Gmail to us and all the rest of it. John?
Could I also say, if you haven't had a chance to yet, go to Garbage's channel and like and subscribe, because he is doing some really great AI videos. So do check them out and do like and subscribe, because he's doing some great stuff there. So yeah, give him a look, give him a like, give him a subscribe.
We give him a cheer up at the beginning, me and Christian, and yeah, it's good that because we're all a team here. We all want to help each other out, and everybody's mucking in, and I'm extremely appreciative of it. So
good fun community, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's all join in. So thank you, Christian. Thank you, John, for racing on. Thanks to everybody in the thread. Definitely thanks to Garbage, because he's masterminding what's going on in the thread and making sure everybody's happy. I think it's time to have a bit of tea. Good night, everybody.